welcome to this special edition of India Business Report. I'm Yogita Lamai in Mumbai. Over the past 18 months, there's been sharp focus on women in India and the issues surrounding them. Today we're going to be talking about the challenges women here face when pursuing professional careers. Just under 30% of Indian women work, and this is far lower than many emerging economies like China, Indonesia, Nigeria and Brazil. So why is that? Joining me to discuss that are Purvi Sheth, Chief Executive of Shilputsi, Nandini Dias, Chief Executive of Lodestar UM, and Avni Davda, Chief Executive of Tata Starbucks. Thanks very much for being here with us. Let me start with a very basic question. In urban India, the number of women working is actually half that of in India's villages. In cities like Mumbai or maybe Delhi, it's hard to actually imagine that. But why do you think that is?
In urban India, now that we're talking about statistics, I think the only reason that women are holding back is maybe because of their responsibilities and the roles that society in India defines them. So being a mother or being the CEO of your household is an equally difficult task in urban India as well as in rural India. So those definitions, if we relook at, I think then there could be some interesting pictures that would emerge for India. I think women are in the workforce. How we define them are very different.
What's happened is salaries have increased over a period of time and quite rapidly in the last few years and couple of decades. So incomes in households are large enough for a woman not to work or one person not to work, and generally the woman takes that stand that I will stay at home. So it's about the woman wanting to do it or not wanting to do it and setting societal and familial expectations around that. On the other side, I've seen women who want to work but have issues around it, have family, society saying you cannot. I've seen women either cowering down to them in the urban areas more sometimes, and I've also seen women who work around that, whether they do it through persuasion, they do it through coercion, but they do it. So I think it's up to the woman to decide how she wants to play that card, and the urban woman has that card. I mean, she has the education, she has the skill set, and today she has the job opportunity.
If I can add, I think we need to redefine the way we score our brownie points for ourselves. What happens is, if a male goes out, he goes in the morning, you give him a brownie point, he comes back tired and he's not gone out with his friends, you give him a brownie point. And he comes home and he says, okay, I don't mind taking my plate with my own hand, and you give him a brownie point. What happens to women? Women go out and you have left your kids, so you've got a negative point. You have come back late from work and you've got another negative point. And the cook has cooked and kept and the husband is taking his own plate, you've got 3 negative points. So the same set of circumstances, but the scoring system is so different in most people's mind that the woman by default starts feeling guilty.
I mean, you've said that you need to set the right expectations at home and work.
Definitely. I think if you're going to take a back seat and continue to kind of in any fashion accept the roles that society or your loved ones define, then you really have no personality, I think. And today I think a lot of men also respect that if you're going to be late or you're going to be working, I think that's part of life, that's part of who you are. And I think if you are going to be guilt-ridden, it's your responsibility to do away with it. Nothing the organization on diversity or inclusion can do to really help you. Laws are not required to, make you change.
Let me come to another very big question that I have, that even though more women seem to be joining the workforce, you see a whole lot of women dropping out of work in the 30s. Why is that happening?
Today, when a lot of 30-year-olds actually take that stand, they also know that there could be second career opportunities. And there is a little bit of security that they draw from that, saying, look, if I got out for 5 years or 4 years or whatever, and I wanted to come back, I could, because there are opportunities and barriers have been broken on the corporate side. What's not happened is barriers on the societal, cultural side haven't broken as much, and therefore they'd rather step back.
I think women who are organized stay in the workforce. Women who are unorganized drop away. There's no rationality in the way you manage your home often. It's just emotions. So in an office, if there are 10 tasks to be done, you find the best person for that task, you align that person and the person completes the task. At home, you suddenly become an emotional person who thinks that everything has to be done by me. And if I don't cook that food is not going to be sweet enough for that child. And you assume that you cook. Actually, it's highly possible that I'm a disastrous cook. And what I cook, and the poor child actually learns to eat. Maybe, not something that you would want both to do. But you just assume that that's the way it is. If you are always, feeling bad that, oh, I've not done this, I've not done that, and I have to take care of the kids, I have to teach the kids, I have to do everything, then you're going to have a lot of people drop out, and that, change has to come in most people's minds.
Sometimes people say that, I want to continue to work, is it possible for me to take up a role that will be less demanding? And I think that's fair. Having said that, a lot of women today are also finding excuses to drop out of work. While you have a guilt and you have emotions related to how you're doing with your family, sometimes the job is not something that he or she particularly likes. So this becomes an excuse to drop out and say, I want to take it easy or I want to do it. So I think a bit of honesty is very important.
So what can Indian companies do to retain women?
I think there's a lot that the organizations can do in terms of policies. But what I find lacking in sometimes leadership is that they forget that at the end of the day we're all human beings. It's all right to say that she needs the best, she's very good at doing this, we should give her an opportunity, but she's not just a manager in our company. There are other roles that she plays. I had a boss who was treated very badly in her time when she had a child. So she was so driven to make sure that every woman who works for her does not go through the difficulty that she went through. I got my promotion in 18 months since I came back to work, and other colleagues of mine got it at the same time, because this individual took the time to say that Avni is not here for this 18 months or for the last. She looked at my career over the next 10 years and gave me those opportunities. So I think it works both ways.
Before you have policies, companies need to be very honest as to why they're doing it. The whole thing about inclusion, about protecting women, making sure that they've diversity management is taken care of, is that a lip service or is that something that you really want to do as an organization? And you find companies who say, we'd like to do it because this is a good to say or a good to have, will make some amount of effort but won't go the whole way. And then there will be some who will spend the money and who will put their money where their mouth is to make sure that real inclusion happens.
But what's the percentage? Like,
I think lower percentage of those who really make it happen and make it convenient. But beyond that, what do you do for the long term to make sure that you recognize them, you design jobs in a way that women can come back into the workforce after a break and then stick on for a long time? Those are things that companies haven't got their arms around. You have a huge change need there.
We're speaking to each other at a time when the economy is going through a slowdown. So at times like these, are companies inclined, for example, to actually, allow women to take some off, give them flexi timing or whatever it is to make it comfortable for them to be able to then come back to work after they've had children?
Well, it should be the best time, because the very fact that you're talking flexi time, it means that your salary will be commensurate with your flexi timing. So I think more than that is saying that, you need that 1 year, it's okay, please go, come back. And if you stand by people who is, in need at that point of time, they will come back. And if you're good at your job, the organization will take you back. But it's not just women. It's important to understand that we do this for men too. I have a lot of men who say these days, I need paternity leave, and I say, sure. I mean, why is it that it's only a mother who's, got a kid? The father's got the kid too. So an equal opportunity is what is most critical, rather than making it, I'm doing things which are only meant for women, because you're not going to gain respect with that. You're not going to get real inclusion with that. You're just going to have a whole lot resentful.
This is a point actually I want to pick up on, because there's been this whole push for gender diversity in companies across India. Does it sometimes work in the reverse? Does it, do people look at women who are at higher positions and think that they've only got there because they're women and, you know, the companies want to look more inclusive?
I don't think that men are, so naive to think that women are only given a chance because of tokenism or whatever. So I think those make good for coffee conversations, but the reality is that yes, there is a need to allow the woman to take a break as and when she requires, to provide the facilities at workplace, and to do it, as she rightly pointed out, with genuine care.
Purvi, you advise companies on HR policies. Now, when companies are hiring, for example, are they worried about hiring women, particularly who are in this certain kind of age group, who are just married, don't have children? Are they worried that, will the person actually last? Will they just stay 1 year and, quit after that? Is that, something that you see?
Less now than I used to see before. I think, people don't talk about it as openly as they did, let's say, 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I think companies have come to realize that the likelihood of a male leaving in 1 year is equal to a woman who's about to get married or have a baby. Yes, there could be a concern that, oh, you're going to have a baby and how would you manage? Sure, there could be a concern, and I think in India, in interview processes, you can even ask that question, which is, in large parts of the world, you don't even ask those questions.
So what was it like earlier? You said they used to be very open about it. So what
did
they
would
say?
ask. They would actually ask, saying, if you're single, a single woman, they say, oh, what do you think? Will she be around with us, or do you think she'll quit? More than single women, it was about women with children or young children, or just had babies, saying she's just had a baby, and do you think she'll stay? So they would ask us. They may not ask the candidate, but they would ask a consultant to check and figure it out.
I'm slightly contrary. I think it passes all our minds that will the person last long enough, and is it worth investing in the person? But my learning
is that more for women than men is my question.
It probably yes, because knowing India, knowing certain communities, knowing how acceptable is it to the market that post a child coming into the family, that maybe the girl is expected to give up. So of course it crosses your mind. I've slowly realized that the more you talk to them, not at the point of it's my engagement and there's an arranged marriage and I've been told to stop work. If you tell at that point of time, it's too late.
And you've had such instances?
Oh, lots of them. Oh, lots of them. Despite counseling, 50% of them will go out. But I found that if I counsel them enough, it's possible to change that lady's mindset.
Okay, let's leave it there for the moment. We're taking a short break now, but when we come back, I'm going to be asking why, despite more women choosing to work, so few are becoming the bosses of their companies. Welcome back to this special edition of India Business Report. Today we are discussing the issues surrounding women at the workplace, and joining us on the panel is Purvi Sheth, Chief Executive of Shilputsi, Nandini Dias, Chief Executive of Lodestar and Avni Davda, Chief Executive of Tata Starbucks. I'm going to quote some statistics from the IT sector because it's one of those sectors in India which has a lot of women working in it. It says there are 65% of women at the entry level, 27% at mid-management level, and just 9% at senior management level. Why is it that women are not rising to the top of India's companies?
Two parts to that story. One is the woman herself, because she gets confused at different stages of her life and is not brutally honest about what she wants. And sometimes it is the other way, a person gets very high up there and compromises a lot on their personal life. So the imbalance in your priorities tend to create that. You either leave or you go the other way. So I think the pendulum is swinging on both sides. The second is that while there's a lot that the government or the organizations can do, and they are doing, I think over the last few decades we found a lot of people either doing mentoring or getting women out there to understand the problems of balancing life. But I think the one significant debate that is not really happening in India is changing the dimensions of what the role of a woman is. And I think unless the society does that, this confusion will never end, because the way my mother-in-law expects me to be or my father-in-law expects me to be, the locus of control is with the society at the end of the day when it comes to a woman.
At the top end, the preconceived notions just now are you have to be 100% dedicated at all 24 hours. And if in a board meeting you say family, that board may look at you and say, what family? This is the family. We need to change that definition at the senior level. I don't think we are willing to give up everything for just being part of that board.
So how do you do it? You're a chief executive. How in your life do you do it?
For example, the weekend is a weekend. I expect people to be switched off. I switch off. And I can go to any of my clients and say, excuse me, this is the weekend. This is my family time. For the week, I'm totally dedicated. Monday to Friday, call me anytime. I'm there for you. Saturday, Sunday, I'm dedicated to the family and I'm there for them. Now to say that, currently the expression is not, wow, she's managing time. That's not the look on the face. The look on the face is, and they expect us to put them in the board. If more and more women accept that to be the board member, to be the CEO, I have to be like a clone of the male, and I'm going to strive being, I'm never going to get there.
Avni, how are you managing it? I mean, you're the chief executive again of a company. How do you manage this balance?
No, I think I'm very candid, like Nandini said, about my life. I think I know my priorities are my son and my husband and my friends or my family, and I decide or I make a choice that this is how I'm going to lead it. I think organizing your life is very important. You need to be very disciplined about it, and you need to be completely honest. So if I have to, my son's not well today, but I tell him that these are my commitments and I'm going to try and be here at this time. And I do the same with my board member or my boss. I tell him that, my son is not well and I need to get away because he needs me. There's no point in earning a couple of $1 million and ending up with an ulcer and your child not knowing you. That is, to my mind, creating a dinosauric world.
It troubles me sometimes, with all due respect, when somebody says, I have to make the choices. Why is it that women have to make the choices? Because you're back going to saying you can't have it both. And men have been having it both. Everybody they have both, right? You never tell the father that you have to select between your son or your office. It's not either or. You don't have to make a choice. You must have both.
I'm going to bring up two more points, which I found very interesting. One study done by ASSOCHAM, which is an industry body in India, has said that 3 out of 4 working women in urban India suffer from lifestyle diseases, things like diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity. That's a large number. Is our expectations from society, but also this aspiration, ambition, sort of stretching urban women thin.
Yes and no. I think if you're not spending enough time on yourself and you're spending time between family and work and doing nothing else, then that's a discipline issue. That's a personal issue that you're not paying attention to. Companies and bosses will put pressure if you don't tell them that I need to go home at a certain time. Family will put pressure if you tell them I don't need to get to the gym at a certain time. So I think some lifestyle issues do come up, and of course people find it hard to juggle, but I think it's also because you don't sit back and say, what are my priorities, what am I doing to myself?
Young women especially who work in our company today, one of them told me, my fiance tells me I've really put on a lot of weight and I'm not looking as good as I did when we started dating, and she turned around and told him that, I've got a lot to do at work. So I told her that both are demanding. We're asking you to finish something or, drive something, and he's expecting you to look in the pink of health. But are you happy with what you're doing? Are you really missing your routine? There are certain societal norms that are attached to a woman. She needs to be healthy, not just to run the family and the work that she's doing, but also look the way that is. But I think it's true that the women do get stretched and they beat themselves up on those areas. And again, it's something that we have to deal with and deal with honestly.
And the final point I want to bring out, and this is again something that's been talked about in India over most of last year, which is sexual harassment at the workplace. There was a new law that was put in place to look after this. How prevalent is it? And are do companies take it seriously when a woman complains that she's being harassed?
People are getting a little more emboldened to and say what their interpretation of sexual harassment. So there are a lot of things slowly. So if somebody comes and puts an arm around you, which may be a really casual arm, which means nothing, but it's possible that the person who's putting an arm also doesn't see it as incorrect. But now we're making them aware that, listen, maybe you're doing it. You don't know what the other person's interpretation is. So please avoid. And we are conscious of the fact that if somebody complains, we will walk up to the person and say, what you're doing is not appreciated or not liked.
Today, most international companies have global policies around this, so those get enforced in India. If you look at Indian companies, they are beginning to now put in those processes and policies and are explicitly mentioning what those definitions are. Ultimately, it's still a very people-centric process. So it's about the committee, it's about the two individuals involved, and how the whole process ultimately turns out.
When a woman walks up to a committee or to whoever, to a manager, and says that, you know what, I feel like I'm being harassed, you know, I know from personal experience that there have been instances where a manager would just think that, what's the big deal? Do you think that has changed?
I think partly it's not changed. I think in India they do say that she's making a big deal of it. And the policy does need to give certain framework. Like, you know, the policies require you to give everything in writing. Now, how archaic is that? Think about it. If the person is feeling a certain way, she's very uncomfortable about it, why do you need to put it down on paper? What are the protections that we are giving? Like you have, you know, whistleblower policy, which is very robust in our group. The sexual harassment policy or the guidelines given by the government don't attack the problem of the discomfort and the insecurity that the individual feels. I think that until we solve that problem, it should almost be like the person saying, of course, if I'm on the committee, I have to listen to you. It's almost like saying, you know, they are guilty until proven innocent. They are not attacking the basic fundamental issue of how does this person come and bring it up and feel safe about it. And unless we address that, I think it's going to be again one of those policies that will take several decades to really achieve the objective that is set forward.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this discussion. That's all we've got time for this week. I hope you've enjoyed the program. We'll be back next week. In the meantime, for all the business news from around the world, check out bbc.com/business. And for more from here in India, go to bbc.com/India. I'm Yogitalamai in Mumbai, and from everyone on the team, thanks for watching. Goodbye.